And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very excited about this project we're working on right now. It's 10 steps or 10 lessons on how to increase your financial IQ. I should have done this years ago, but no time like the present. And I promise you this, after you go through these 10 steps or these 10 lessons, you'll be financially smarter than 90% of all people on planet Earth when it comes to the subject of money. But since most people don't know much about money, that's not saying much, you know. But at least you'll be smarter than 90% of them. For those who do not know who I am, my name is Robert Kiyosaki. The name is Japanese. I'm fourth generation Japanese American, which means I don't speak Japanese. My family came to the islands of Hawaii in the 1800s, and I was educated in Hawaii and I got a congressional appointment to go to U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and also a nomination to Naval Academy. I took the Merchant Marine Academy in New York, and I graduated from there, and I traveled throughout the world on merchant ships. In 1969, I graduated, and the Vietnam War was still on, and I had to make a decision whether to go to fight the war or not fight the war. And my dad said it was a son's responsibility to fight for his country. So even though my father was against the war, I joined the U.S. Marine Corps, which proves I'm not the smartest guy on earth. I should have joined the Coast Guard or something. But I joined the Marine Corps, and I went to flight school, and I flew the helicopter gunship in Vietnam. I had the distinction of going down 3 times and walking away each time. And when I came back from the war, that's when I had to make a decision, you know, what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And at that point, that's when this book here, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, really came into focus for me. For those who haven't read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a story about my 2 fathers. It's a true story. My real dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. Great guy, PhD, unbelievable father, great man. But the trouble is, he was a school teacher, and as you know, most school teachers really don't know much about money. And so my dad worked hard all of his life and eventually died poor. One of the reasons he died poor was when I came back from the war in 1973-74, he made the tragic mistake of running for lieutenant governor of the state of Hawaii. And he lost because he ran as a Republican in the state that Forbes magazine calls the People's Republic of Hawaii. You know, basically a communistic state at some level, or not really, but that's what they feel it at. I'll get heated in Hawaii for this again. Anyway. But anyway, and my rich dad was my best friend's father, and he was the guy who started at age 9 and started teaching me what the rich teach their kids about money. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is this very simple story of what 2 fathers tell their sons about money. You know, my poor dad always said, go to school, get good grades, get a good, safe, secure job, live below your means, find job security, work hard, save money, get out of debt. Your house is your biggest asset, and you know, you either get the government to pay for your retirement or put your money in mutual funds. You know, jeez. And my rich dad used to say to me, well, you'll never get rich doing that. So as a kid, I had this problem because I really didn't know which dad to listen to. And so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, again, is a story of this juxtaposition between a rich father and a poor father advising their sons, my best friend and I, about the subject of money. And this is being shot in 2007, and as of 2007, Rich Dad, Poor Dad has now been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 6 years. And it is now the #2 longest-selling book on the New York Times bestseller list. We just passed the Joy of Sex. Joy of Sex is #3. Rich Dad moved to #2. You know, there's only 2 things, sex and money, you know. And I believe #1 right now is The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck or something like that. I think that's what it is. I didn't read that book. I should have read that book, but I didn't. So I'm pretty proud of this book staying on the bestseller this long. And I think the reason it's done this well is really written for a 9-year-old child, because that's how old I was when my rich dad started teaching me about the subject of money. And being simple, I think people get these horrendous, you know, ahas as to how they themselves can be rich. Because my poor dad, being a school teacher and a highly educated person, says, you know, I'm a school teacher, I'll never be rich. well, why being a school teacher then? It didn't make sense to me. So anyway, it was a great, I'm happy that this book has done so well and is still up there. And just recently, my friend Donald Trump and I wrote a book together. We've been working together now for about 2.5 years. He's a great guy. And interestingly enough, we both had rich dads. And we have very similar attitudes. Because wealth or mental wealth or financial education is actually passed down from parent to child. Because our school systems teach us nothing about money or very little about money at school. They have economics, but I've never met too many rich economics teachers and things like this, So Donald and I wrote this book together. I'm very happy that it's, went to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list in about, well, at least on Amazon, it went up there in 31 minutes. It was up. And so it's a marriaging of two brands, Trump and Rich Dad, working together here. And the reason is we're very concerned about these 401k, Social Security, Medicare. We're worried about the gap between the rich, the have-nots, but as more importantly, the shrinking middle class. The middle class right now is in very big trouble, in our opinion. Of course, the politicians say things are fine, but that's why Donald and I are not politicians, because we have to live with ourselves. Anyway, so I'm very happy about these subjects and these books. And a little bit more of my background, like I said, when I came back from the war, instead of being, like my dad said to me, go to school and get a job, he wanted me to go get my master's degree and my PhD and go work for the government. I said, but Dad, you're unemployed and you have a PhD. Well, that doesn't make any difference. You need job security. The government's going to take care of you. And I said, I don't want to do that. So I went and I started my first company. And some of you may have seen these things. So in 1977, I came out with this. These were nylon and Velcro surfer wallets. I developed these, nearly went broke. It was my two partners and I were in our 20s, And then I developed this product here, designed this thing. And this is a little shoe pocket because back in the 70s, the baby boomers was just starting to get fat. So jogging became the craze, you remember. And then, where do they put their keys? So I designed this to go through the laces of your shoes. And then inside here was an ID card, which we developed. And the ID card was so that they could identify the body when it lay dead on the side of the road here. And so this, you can read about this odyssey. I wrote a book called Before You Quit Your Job. And there's the things I should have known before I started this business. And this product took me into national prominence. I was in Runner's World magazine. Bill Cosby had it on his show in Las Vegas and all this. And it was the #1 product in sporting goods in 1978. And it salvaged this business here. So I was rich, I was poor, and I was rich, and I went poorer again. This goes up and down. But that's the path of an entrepreneur. And so I'm very proud of these things, although I didn't make any money off them. It was my first start into entrepreneurship. So what I really found out was that then I made all my money back. And I found out that it's financial knowledge or financial IQ that makes you rich, not money. How many people realize in this room that if you give a poor person money, you don't make them rich? The trouble with giving a poor person money, they just stay poor longer. That's why I don't really support welfare and social programs like that. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I don't want to get into that quagmire. Because my dad always said you should give poor people money. I said, you don't help them. And my rich dad said, don't give them any money. They'll help them better. So those are the 2 points of view, and I don't want to get into that. But anyway, I believe that financial education is what makes you rich. That's why when you see a lottery winner win $10 million and they're broke next week, you realize it ain't the money. Or these sports stars who are become multimillionaires when they're in their 20s and are unemployed in their 30s. That's just because money does not make you rich. Financial information makes you rich. So what the Rich Dad Company has here is we have a little book here. And the reason we create this little book is it time for you to get out of the rat race and, little rats and all this is because when I was going through school, I found I couldn't read that well. I like pictures. So we put this it's a kind of a catalog brochure type of thing, but it explains, a little bit about what the Rich Dad Company stands for and all this. You can get one and just read through it and why we're in existence. But one of the ways my rich dad taught me financial education was very simply by playing the game of Monopoly. I was 9 years old and playing Monopoly by the hours with him. And I said, why are you playing Monopoly? And he said to me, he says, son, I'm glad you asked the question. Because I go home and my poor dad, the school teacher, would ask me, what you been doing all day? So I've been playing Monopoly. He says, stop, put that stupid game away and do your Homework, so you can get a safe, secure job. Get good grades, you know. I'm going, but I can see my rich dad, let's play Monopoly. So again, it was this paradox or this paradigm or this, you know, this juxtaposition. So finally I asked my rich dad, I said, why am I playing Monopoly with you? And my poor dad said, my real dad says, put it away. He says, because the formula for great wealth is found in this Monopoly game board. And most of us know the formula. 4 green houses, 1 red hotel. 4 green houses, 1 red hotel. That's all you have to do. So here I am 9 years old, and then 10 years later I go to school in New York at the Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. You know, my mother and dad were really proud. Only 2 students going to that school from Hawaii. Really, you know, the Congress of America selected me. And I'm in, even though I was an F student, I still got there. So I come back from school in New York, and at 19 or in 10 years, my rich dad suddenly has one of the biggest hotels smack dab on Waikiki Beach, where all the hula girls and the white sand beach and the palm trees. I went, holy mackerel. So 9 for 19, in 10 years, he went from obscurity to one of the richest guys in the state of Hawaii, just playing 4 green houses, 1 red hotel. Now, the hotel wasn't red, but it was still a hotel. You know what I mean? So, it's good. So that's why I understood games, and games were very powerful teaching tools. So if you look at this over here, this is the cone of learning done by a gentleman named Dale. It came out in 1969. Arizona State University gave this to me, and they said, I'm on the right track. What Dale found out is the way we learn is the worst way of learning is reading. Absolute the worst way. Okay, that's why I wrote my book, and I just wrote this book to encourage people to play the game, because that's how you learn, is play the game. And the second worst way of learning is hearing words or lecture. So what ways do most school teachers teach? Lecture. Reading and lecture. And you wonder why guys like me in the back or asking the question, how am I ever going to use this? You know, I've had spherical trigonometry, 2 years of calculus. I've never used any of that. Just, this is all I need. 1, 2, 3, you know, I can get rich. But what Dale found out, as the cone of learning went up, the learning actually increases this way, and participating in discussion was a great way to learn. So that's where with a game, you're discussing, you're talking about things, and you're going to find I'm going to encourage people to discuss, you know, subjects as a group. The trouble in school, if you discuss in a group, that's called cheating. And I cheated. I mean, I discussed a lot in school, especially at test time. And then the second best way to learn was via simulation or a game. The military now is using electronic games to train guys to fight, unfortunately. Things like this, the kids are on games and all this because they're the best, second to the best teaching tool. And the best thing is doing the real thing. So that's why I learned so much just playing Monopoly, because then it was the next step in doing the real thing. It was very easy to me. So when I hear people say, oh, investing is so risky, the reason is because they're reading and listening to people talk about it, so they don't really do it. So I absolutely love games, and that's why I created this cash flow board game, because it's in between Monopoly, a game I love, and doing the real thing. It just adds more sophistication to it. So if I could explain the board game really quickly to you, is how I designed it this way. And kid, I like colors, I like to doodle a lot. I kind of right brain more than left brain. But this here is the rat race. And most people understand the rat race. You go to school to get into the rat race when you go to school to get a job and invest in 401k mutual funds and get out of debt. Well, that's, if you like the rat race, good life. That's not what the Rich Dad Company stands for. The second investment level is on this thing. There's big deals and small deals and all this. So you get some practice. So I started off with my little greenhouses and things like this. And I started buying bigger buildings and bigger buildings. But the ultimate, the third level, is called the fast track. And the fast track really does exist. The fast track was created by a gentleman named Joseph Kennedy, the father of John Kennedy, the President of the United States. And Joseph Kennedy, head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, in 1933, after the crash, they created the fast track. And the fast track was designed only for the rich. You had to be a millionaire or making $200,000 a year to invest in investments in the fast track. So one of the reasons the rich get richer is they invest up here, while the poor and the middle class are down here living below their means, working hard, saving money, getting out of debt, investing in mutual funds and a 401k. So the Rich Dad Company was set up, and the reason I designed this game for people to get out of here, practice a little smaller deals here, and eventually get to the fast track. So I make millions of dollars up here with a lot less risk, but risk is because I have more financial education. So the purpose of this series of educational products is to give you at least some fundamental education as to how to get to the fast track if you want to get there. I don't recommend it. It's actually a den of thieves up here. I really quite enjoy it. I mean, it reminds me of my classmates in the back of the room cheating, discussing all the time, things like this. So it's not for everybody. For some people, I would say for 90% of the population, they belong in the rat race. They should live below their means. They should work hard. They should save money. They should invest in 401ks with mutual funds and diversify. That's not me. So the Rich Dad Company is designed for the people, the 10% who really want to be rich. So basically, that's what we do. So what I'm going to do right now, and for those of you who watch this on tape, I ask people to discuss what I've talked about so far. As I said, if I lecture any longer, I lose you. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to participate in discussion, what you've learned so far. I don't care if you agree or disagree with me. I just want you to hear what I said. Because if you think you disagree with me now, it's going to get worse. Because you're going to find out why people who have a job, who save money, who are putting in 401ks are the biggest losers around. So if you disagree with me now, stay tuned. It's going to get worse. I just want you to hear what I said, not disagree with what I had said. You don't say, oh, I don't like what he said, because he really offends me. Well, then you haven't learned a thing. Open your mind, listen to what I said, and then you can throw it out. But let it come in first. So 1 minute, please discuss what you've heard so far. Thank you for your participation. But going back to this thing, is it time for you to get out of the rat race and all this? I write about the 3 steps to the financial process. And the 3 big steps are around the 10 steps. And it's really simple. You form a cash flow club. Only can be 4 people. Could be a church group. Could be in business. Could be your neighborhood. Could be your family, And I think you'll find it'll grow as more people learn. And then inside the big picture, which is understanding why the rich are getting richer and why the idea of saving money and getting out of debt and living below your means is kind of an obsolete idea. There's lesson 1, 2, 3, 4. So you play DVD 1, discuss, play the game. Play DVD 2, lesson 2, discuss, play the game. So you can get together once a week, takes you 10 weeks or so. I know it's a lot of time, but it is about money, money we all use. 3 and then 4. And then in step 4, you'll find there is called the Rich Dad Challenge. And at the Rich Dad Challenge, you can quit at that point, which a lot of people do. Because the Rich Dad Challenge is then you go online with our electronic cash flow game, E101, and you have to challenge 3 other clubs. And there's only going to be 1 winner. 3 losers, 1 winner. And the reason for that, you'll find in lesson number 4, is a very high part of financial IQ is emotional IQ. Most people say, oh, it's so risky. I want a safe, secure job. You don't have a prayer. You're already lost. You checked out. And then the other side of emotion is greed. Oh, baby, this stock's going to go through the moon. I'm going to bet the house, the ranch, and everything on it, So those are the 2 reasons people go broke, greed and fear. And generally, they run hand in hand. So step 4 is a very important step. That's why it's the Rich Dad Challenge. You go online. Your club members are behind you. They're watching you, either winning or losing and all this, because that's the reality in the world of money. You either win or you lose. That's it. And unfortunately, the people in 401ks and mutual funds are the biggest losers. People are ripping them off. The government's ripping them off. Mutual fund companies are ripping them off, and they don't even know it. So I sit there going, geez, that's the price of having no financial education in our schools. Then we go to clarity, and clarity, by this time, you should have a little bit more, understand the game. You played it 4 times now. Hopefully you've won the thing. You can keep playing until you win, and then you go lessons 5, 6, and 7. And in this point, you're now transitioning to cash flow 202. In clarity, over this point, you may want to spend a little bit more money. We have Rich Dad's coaching here. You want to get clear on where you are and where you want to go. So it's a little bit more time, a little bit more money, a little bit more commitment. Of course, you don't have to spend anything. You can go through this whole thing for free if you want, okay? And then you'll have lessons 8, 9, and 10. And at step 10, you have Rich Dad's challenge, and that's the whole enchilada. You get through, you can win step 10. You'll understand markets going up, markets going down, playing it this way, playing it that way, and all that. That's ETO 202. Again, you'll challenge 3 other clubs. 3 other individuals in the club, so there'll be 3 losers, and then the losers got to suck it up and go back in there and play the game again, because that's how people win. When people talk about money, they said, oh, if I had money, I wouldn't have any more problems. That's a bunch of bunk. With your poor, you have problems, and when you're rich, you have problems. One thing I love about Donald is he wrote about it. He's lost $1 billion, and that was his best. He said, I learned more earning that money back. I lost about $1 million. That was really a great process, learning it back. So when somebody says to me, oh, I got money problems, you don't know how big my money problems are. I say, well, how much do you owe? Oh, $30,000. I go, you loser. I heard somebody went broke declared bankruptcy on $30,000. See, you are the size of your problem. Do you know what I mean? If 30,000 is a big problem for you, you got big problems. Try $1 million, try $1 billion. Those are big problems. So you are the size of your problem, and it's measured in dollars. Does that make sense, you guys here? Yeah. So that's why the Rich Dad Challenge, after you've gone through all of this, you discuss it with your team and all this, then you go on to the Rich Dad Challenge. By that time, you'll have your emotions under control, your vocabulary will be better, because IQ is very simply vocabulary and numbers and emotions. The reason people have a hard time financially is because we don't teach any financial vocabulary in school. What's the internal rate of return versus an ROI, versus a cap rate versus a PE? That's what makes you rich. It's words that make you rich. So as you go through this process and you stick it out to the end, your vocabulary will increase. You'll understand why a PE of 8 is better than a PE of 20. And if you don't know words and numbers, then you're not very financially smart. If all you know is work hard, save money, invest for the long term, live below your means, get out of debt, invest in a mutual fund and a 401k and diversify, that's not highly intelligent. But for most people, for 90% of the population, it's a smart move. Does that make sense, guys, here? Yes. But if you want to get smarter than the average bear out there, that's what these 10 steps are. So you go through big picture, clarity, focus. They say diversify, diversify, diversify. Warren Buffett, the greatest investor in the world, says diversification is for people who don't know what they're doing. So if you don't know what you're doing, diversify. If you're smart, you want to focus. And by this step, you should be focusing. You should know what you want to be invested in. Do you want to go in real estate? Do you want to go in business? Do you want to go stocks, bonds, options? Do you want to do real estate development? Do you want to do land development? Do you want to do foreclosures? There's so many different ways you can make money.